In this class, you're going to learn all about design basics. You're going to learn the elements of good design, and you're going to learn the principles of design. Design happens, and these elements are used whether it's web design, multimedia, print, anything that is going to convey an idea, have a look, a feel, a style to it, includes elements of design. You're going to look at this and choose to use good design principles, hopefully, in your final project. It's going to encompass all elements of design, from lines and shapes, the feel of a website, the colors, how the how the final project is balanced, contrast, unity. We'll talk about all of those. Another lecture that we'll have is a lecture called CRAP. And that's a euphemism for contrast, relationship, alignment, and proximity. Those four elements of design as well, or principles of design, and we'll talk more about those. This lecture is going to focus, and we're going to talk about examples of design. And one of the things that has been put together is this video. We're going to talk about all those elements and all those principles. This is using lines to design. These are just lines. We have wavy lines here. We have a moon. But you'll notice it's what? It's a swan. We're also not using colors. We're letting the lines talk to us. So when you look at this, look at what's going on. There's balance here. There's unity. There's size. There's alignment. All of the things that the principles of design cover are held in this one image. We'll move on to 2. Again, we're using lines. We're using some gradients here, but notice how we use the lines on the outside and then the lines to convey. We see an inverted heart here. We see the lines to give us something that look like what? Clouds, stars, space, things like that. And then our third example, we see lines used very sparsely here. This isn't really a great example because we can't see it that well, but you can see the line starts here, and as we travel through, what we're doing is we're actually connecting the dots. So as you look at the elements of design here, notice that we're really almost connecting the dots. As the lines progress through, we're really looking at connecting the dots. And then this is for action engineering. Does it say engineering to you? Those are the other things that we need to look at, is what's being conveyed here. Does it give us a good style, sense of style? Does it convey what it should convey? So these are all things that you have to think about when you're putting together your project. Let's look at elements of shape. Here we see our text is in an arrow this way, and then we see the cutout of the text here. So we have this shape of what? Triangles. It's easy to follow. We can see this. This text looks like it fits right in there, yet this text is quite separate. When you read this, you would read this text. If you were looking at this larger, you would read this text separately. The line here is another line of text. So what we're seeing are lines of text, and then across the bottom here we have more lines of text. So this is one way that they've used shapes to convey an idea. Here's another one. What we see is almost a plate effect. They've used a shape, and then as you come in, everything is within this circular shape. And then here, what do we have? Well, this harkens back to almost a 60s feel. We have irregular shapes. Notice it's Intercultural Week, unity, diversity. We're kind of looking everywhere. We have sign language here. We have looks like Russian text. Then we have some big Western text, and then we have some Asian text here, and it says Harper College. So we see shapes being used differently. This looks like a mask. If you'll notice, here's an eye, a mouth, and another eye. So we're starting to get a feel. Here's another shape. Here's a face. Here's the lips, another eye. This is a nose and another eye. So what we're getting is a real different shape or a different feel here when we look at this. The next element of design we're going to be looking at is the element of space, the use of space. In this case, we're looking at space in a couple of different ways. We're looking at negative space versus positive space. We're looking at the use of space and how it elicits a reaction. What we see here is a cross. We see space here, and then we see the letters A, I, D, S. Also, is this a human shape? Is this the shape of the rib cage and sides and the thighs as they come down? And then the cross is the pelvis or the pelvic area. And then we have black and white. What kind of reaction does this elicit? What is it that you're seeing in this graphic? We see AIDS. We see possibly that this is the shape of a body here, the lower half of a body, and then a cross splitting the legs. Is it a phallic image? You have to decide. But we see the use of shapes. We also see the use of only two colors. We could look at this as contrast as well. The principles, the design principles of contrast and balance. We have a balanced image here, but we also have the contrast of the black and the white. So these are all kinds of things that the designer was trying to convey. So and sometimes we have to ask ourselves, what does this mean to us? Is it saying what it means to us? This is a shape of a person, and then we see down here in the reverse, what do we see? Well, we see a building here, okay, and then we see mentors at the bottom, and yet we don't see anything up here. So what does it say? We see the night sky with stars, and then we have the black and white contrast. And now we have a different use of shapes. This is obviously a seashell. We see colors, we see three lines, so we're starting to look also at colors. Is it balanced? What's the contrast? Where's the unity? We see this large shape, size has an image. We see the image of the pole or the column here off to the side. We see another line here, and then the three lines. So this is another one of those where you kind of have to look at what is it trying to convey shape. It says all in one. We can't see the text down here, but what could this be an image that's being used for? An aquarium, a beach, a resort, a spa. You know, what do images convey? What do they give you a sense of? Is it a sense of pleasure? Is it a sense of fear and loathing? What's the space used for? What's it look like? Okay, moving on, we're going to look at texture. And we see texture here. We see fur, we see fire, we see a hose, we see a fire hydrant. All images for what? This is a Dalmatian, fire, a fire hydrant, and then a fire hose. So these are all going to be used in relationship to fire service. Firefighters, fire service, and these are all images that relate to that. Notice the red colors, the black and white with the red border, and then we have the fire hydrant on the red background. Did I do this one? Okay, so now we have more texture and we have dancers. And what is it we're trying to convey here with the draperies? I want you to think about that. What is it we're trying to convey? Well, obviously we're trying to say that dancing is flowing and moving and constantly in motion, and I think that's why they use the drapes here. He's static, the drapes are static, but then notice how the drapes flow here and they're moving. They have the image of moving, and the same here. We see the drapes flowing and we see her nestled against the drapes. Notice the use of colors, light colors in both of these images, and then we have a lot stronger colors with him blending into those colors. These stand out, and she's a little bit part of that color there. So what is it they're trying to say? That's what you have to think about. What is the user or the reader or the viewer going to take away from your design? What is it you're trying to convey, and are you successfully conveying that? We have an image of being in the ballet, flowing, dancing, moving, motion. So that's what the drapery, and this is what it's trying to convey, give that impression. Now we have old images. This is obviously going to be what? Could be a museum piece. It says here, reports of gold, legacy of Castile. So these are the kinds of things that we would normally probably see with museums, antiquities, architecture, old drawings, old images, giving us a sense of what? And is it conveying that? Is it giving us a good image of that? And there's that image enlarged right there. Is it successfully showing us what we feel when we go to see a museum? Okay, type. The use of type is so critical when we talk about eliciting a feeling. We have sans serif type, which means straight block type that has, these are sans serif types. There's no serifs. There's no those little curly cues on the end or the little squiggles that you see. This is very, has a big impact. It's very direct, very stark, very modern. And that's the kind of feel that they're trying to invoke. When we see critical, the physician, we are taking a no business, no nonsense type of attitude when we use these types of text. Here we see a serif font. This is the type of font here that's got the little fill outside here. And we'll talk more about text. We'll have a whole exercise on text later in this semester, and why it's important and what it elicits. This type of text tends to flow. It leads right into the next line or into the next letter, so that it just kind of has a flow about it. It's not stark. It's not an impact. It has a more gentle feel to it. And then here is text used in images. Okay, F, S. We're trying to get finis, which means end. Okay, and are they being successful in that? Notice it's all black and white images. We've got the F, the N, the S. So we're really looking inward on the text. Okay, we're going to talk about color now. How important is color? Color means very different things in different cultures. In our culture, red is blood. In some cultures, it means good luck or good fortune. So we have to be very careful on the colors that we use. When we have to know our target audience first, then we can talk about colors. Also within our own culture, what does green convey? Well, green can convey money. It can convey life, spring, renewal. Blues tend to convey, in this ad it says, am I blue? Blue tends to be a feeling. I'm depressed. Blue can also mean cold. When we combine blues and whites, we use them to convey cold, ice. If we're going to be putting together a ski package, you're not going to be showing the mountains all green and renewed and fresh in springtime. You're going to show them white and shades of white and blue and purple, light purples, because we want a sense of cold. We want them to feel cold. When we want someone to be hot, we give them oranges and yellows and reds. When we are giving them a sense of dirt or gardening, we're going to use browns and yellows. So these are colors, these are things that you really need to know who your target audience is, and then what is it you're trying to convey. So let's go through the rest of the examples. We have Crowded House, Fingers of Love, and inside here we're trying to give the image of what? That they're holding on to light. Okay, we see that orange, reds right in here, flesh tones. And then bowling for kids' sake. We see a bowling pin, we see green, meaning what? Money. And then we see a bowling ball, and then, believe it or not, this is a person. Here's the eye, Here's the nose, here's the mouth. We have kind of a line going through here that could be an earring, but is it doing its job? When you look at advertising, sometimes it's a gut feeling. Sometimes right off the bat you know how it makes you feel. Burger King uses orange and reds because survey says it makes you eat faster and makes you eat more food. Why? McDonald's, yellow. You order more food, it makes you hungry. Those are colors that make you hungry. Each color elicits a reaction. Black signifies death, and in some cultures, white signifies death. So we need to know those things. What is it we're trying to convey? Who's your target audience, and what are you trying to convey? Okay, now we're going to move on to the principles of design. These are the principles, these are the basics, or kind of the rules. What are the rules of design? This one talks about balance, contrast, unity, and size. We're going to have another lecture that talks about CRAP, which is contrast, relationship, alignment, and proximity. Close things. So here we have balance. We have a red circle, a blue arrow, and then a line down. And then we have a little dot up here. Notice the dots are diagonal. And then we have another arrow with a line. So we're following from here down to this arrow and reading this text. We have balance again. We have the hands being diagonal. They're holding pretty close to being apart here. They're running diagonal. We have the same amount of forearm and hand showing, and then it's balanced by the text in each corner, so that what we have now are these images that are balanced with the text in the diagonal. And then finally we have this. We have a couple of things here. We have contrast, we have unity, and we have balance, because we have a day scene with a structure, and then we have a night scene with Big Ben. Okay, and then we have this arrow, or the shooting star that looks like a shooting star, balancing across both with text in the middle. So we've got this balance going on as well as contrast. Okay, unity, the other unifying thing, are these two buildings. They're two buildings. They may not be exactly the same, but they're two buildings, so they have the unity. Okay, let's talk about contrast. Here again, we see an advertiser for Romeo and Juliet. We have a female form and a male form directly in center, opposite of each other. We have Romeo's name on this side and Juliet's name on this side. So we have that balance again. And not only that, but we have the contrast of black and white. Then we have the little knife signified here. Okay, we have more contrast and balance. Again, we're going to see elements of contrast and balance a lot of times together. That's one of the ways we get a good contrast, is when we balance it out with the opposite. So we have the eye in direct contrast to the shape on this side. We have the text. Obviously it's not going to be the same words, but we have, if you'll notice, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 letters on this side, 5 letters on this side. We have the same amount of text, and then our borders, our sconces in the corners. So we see this balance again. Okay, now we go to unity, another principle or design concept. And we see Pegasus. This is an advertisement, and we see different mythological creatures with probably Zeus on the back of Pegasus. I believe that's how that works. We're seeing this is a flyer actually for a cruise ship. We see the unity here, the similar setup layouts. We see a steamer trunk with clothes in it, and then we see the vessel here. Notice how they're both oval shaped, have same size images on each side with this text, and then we have circle of the world, and looks like it could be talking about around the world travel on a ship. And then finally we have this. Sometimes unity is a thought. We have boxes, shapes of boxes. Sometimes it isn't three or four different ideas, but the same shapes in an image. Okay, and we see that again throughout here. And then finally, the concept of size and relationship. We have this huge face taking over this Asian doll face taking over the review, and then within each, this is the table of contents here, and what we see are images, and on those pages you'll be able to see what's going on. And it's also black and white. Black and white's very heavily used as a design concept and principle. Again, 21, the big 21 in here. So now we see 21 collected stories, and then Ward just as the author, and we see this huge 21 black, white, and gray tones. And then finally we see this rose, and what is this within the rose? Well, we have to find out. And then we have a dancer down here, and it looks like it says Aurora's Wedding, and this is a playbill actually. And we have this giant rose over the dancer, and then these smaller images inside. Notice how the rose is black and white, and then these smaller images are color. And then we have the dancer who's partially black and white and partially color. So these are design basics that we're going to talk about consistently. Lines, the use of lines, shapes, the use of space, correct use of space. Do you have enough white space? We'll talk about that when you go to scan your book. We'll talk about textures. We'll talk about the use of type and color. In our case, we're not going to use a lot of type. Remember that one of the things that we want to do is we're building a project for kids who can't read yet, but who are computer literate. And we'll talk about that more as we get into the final project and how we look at our audience and how we design for them. All of these are huge issues of design. Who's our audience? Can they read? And if they do read, what language do they read? And what are the design principles in play? Okay, that's our lecture for this week on Design Basics. If you have any questions, give me a call or come by and see me or drop me an email. Talk to you later.